Okay. So yesterday we were trying to get shot in our Mishnah because our Mishnah says that somebody could tell his wife that if the baby is going to be a boy, I want to give him a mana. And if it's going to be a girl, I want to give him a sign. Correct, Rav Huna, how is that possible? You cannot be makna something to a vlad. So the Gemara went through different possibilities of maybe who our Mishnah go like. So our Mishnah started, maybe we can say that our Mishnah is going like Rabbi Yosy. Our first Gemara said maybe it's going like a mayor who says Adam makna davar shlei b'laylam. So the Gemara said true, but it's not lidavar shlei b'laylam. You might be able to be makna a davar shlei b'laylam, but you can't be makna something to a davar shlei b'laylam. Then the Gemara tried Rabbi Yosy, who holds that an Uber could be kind of. But then the Gemara said, no, maybe Rabbi Yosy holds an Uber could be kind of if it's getting Yerusha that's coming to it automatically. But who said you could be makna something to an Uber? So the Gemara tried using Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika to say that it works for Yerusha. But the Gemara says it can't be Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika because Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika also says dafka if the person is boilam, not necessarily is not boilam. And you cannot combine Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika and Rabbi Yosy because who said there is such a talent? Then the Gemara tried to say maybe it's not awarding the money to the child itself, rather he's awarding it to the delivery doctor who's mivasreni, who's telling him what it is. The Gemara says that can't be either because the end of the Mishnah says Ein Sham Yorish Elahu. We're not talking about Yoshua, we're talking about the Mavaser. So then the Gemara said maybe he only gifted to the child was born already. The Gemara said that can't be either, because he said, Kol Masha Teiled Ishti, whatever my wife will give her to, thank you so much. So clearly the baby wasn't born. So then the Gemara tried saying, maybe you could be makna something to a child that's not born yet, as long as you say you shouldn't get it until the baby's born. That would work according to Rav Nachman. It's more true, but we're talking about Rav Huna over here, and Rav Huna says that wouldn't work. And then the Gemara brought a third shita from Absheshes, who said echad zeh v'echad zeh kana, meaning you could be makna to a vlad, to an uber, and say if you say I want the uber to be kana now, say if you say I want the uber to be kana when the uber is born. So this was a chiddush of pshat from Absheshes, and the Gemara wants to find now a source for Absheshes. Amr Absheshes, Mino Aminullah. Where did I get this from? That you could be makna to an Uber could be kind. The Tanya we learned, very fascinating case. We know that a ger who dies, he has no yorship, and therefore his nechasim are heft. So ger shemes ubizbizu Yisrael nechasim. Naturally, everybody pounced on his nechasim. Maybe the Chevra Kadisha had to be busy with burying him, but everybody else who were so concerned about him, who were visiting him and concerned about him, they were just waiting for him to die so they can quickly chap his Yerusha. So they chapped his Yerusha, and then, darn it, they heard that his wife was expecting. So now he has a Yerush. Vishamu sheyesh loy ben. Huh? She doesn't Yerush with him. No. Wife doesn't Yerush with him. So they thought that she had a son, or Shahaisa Ishtai Mubaris. They said, thank it, they were sitting Shiva because the guy had a son. So the halacha is Chayav and Hachser, they got to give it back, right? It goes to the son. They tried, it didn't go. What about Hichziroi? Hichzirakal, they gave it all back. But then they heard the good news that the kid died. Right? Then they heard the child died. Or that his wife had a miscarriage. So if they went then and made a new chazaka, they'll be kind of. Or if anybody else went at that time when we confirm that there's no Yerush, that person would be kind of. But the original chazaka that you made while the Uber was alive, or while there was still a son, loikon. So what do you see over here? you see that it belonged to the Uber. It belonged to the Uber, and therefore the people couldn't be koined. We saw that the Uber loikani. If you hold the Uber is not koined, lam lahu achzuki b'shniya. Why do they have to make a new chazaka? And the Uber was never koined. So the first one, the first kinyan that they made should be a perfect kinyan. Why is it necessary to make a second kinyan? Zok the Rashbam. Hichzik b'shniya. Achar shemeisa ben oya Uber. Then it's kana. Hashta leka oy chum yorish. Now there's no more yorish. Very trying to like kana. Why? The gloy milsa shayloi ben Uber. At the time of the first chazaka, it turns out that there wasn't hefker at all because the deceased had a son or had a fetus coming. The afal gab the soif meis ha'uber bebotn v'lo yotza la'avra oilam. Even if the Uber died, that was the case here, died, but at that time it was there, and at that time he was Yerush. Ki Yerush Gomer Choshev, and therefore Umara Lachaskas Machzika Rishina. Alma Uber Yerush Rab Sheshes. You see, an Uber could be Yerush just like Rab Sheshes said. Zok to Gemara Amar Abaye, it's not a kasha. Yerusha Ba Me'ela Shiny. We're not being makna anything to the Vlad. The Vlad is koinit memela through Yerusha. That's what you see from this brisa. But mehechatesi, you hold like absheshes that you could be makna something to an Uber mehechatesi. You see that through Yerusha, an Uber gets it. That's similar to what Yosy says, right? An Uber could be Irish, but to say that an Uber could be koina, someone giving something to him, that's not a right. So therefore, since there was this Uber that was koina, the original chazaka is not valid, and therefore it's a second chazaka that's made after the Uber dies that will be a valid chazaka. Rabba says no, you don't have to say that. In other words, maybe in fact the chazaka an Uber, an Uber is not koina. You don't have a right from me that it was koina. Maybe it was not koina at all. And even a Yerush is not going to be koina. Norvos, shiny hasam, the refuyim arpiyim b'yadayim, meikara. The person who made the chazak originally had not yet clarified exactly what the story is. Are they Yorshim or they're not Yorshim? So when he made the original chazaka, it wasn't really a solid chazaka because he didn't do it with confidence. He wasn't koined, knowing that he could be koined. It was a long shot. I'm going to grab it. Maybe there'll be no Yorshim. That's not really a good chazaka to begin. So therefore, even if the Uber wasn't koina, it doesn't matter. The fact that the person making the chazaka didn't make the chazaka confidently, it wouldn't be a good chazaka anymore. Okay, let's have a look at the Rashbam. Uber does not have any kinyanim at all. V'shayni hasam. It's not because it's already owned by the Uber, so you can't take it. To the contrary, it actually is hefker. The ha'ein Uber yerush. Ella, you know why? You need to make a new chazaka. You need to make kara kechzikoi refuyim rafim b'yadayu. You didn't really take it with confidence. Kishamei sager ubizbezu nechas. When the ger died and someone went to grab his nechasim, b'chzikoi and make a chazaka in it, loy nischavnu lahachzak legamri. It wasn't a confident intent to be kind of, because at that point, im yesh lo yorshim im la. That's what happened that day. They were talking no yorshim. Sheshamulu b'soif shoyeloi ben. Oy ishtoi muberes. V'shem oloi tapel. Forget. When he first took it, he wasn't so sure because he doesn't know there's no yorshim, and it turned out there were yorshim, right? Therefore, his chazaka is not a good chazaka when he originally made the chazaka, even though technically he could have been koined, but he didn't make the chazaka with confidence. If you've clarified with certainty that the ben died, the Uber died, now when you make the chazaka from something that you know for sure is hefker, you're making the proper chazaka with confidence. So it seems very clear from right here that the Rav is taking a very clear position that an Uber is not Yoirish, and the Uber cannot be Kohen, right? That's Rav's position over here. Rav's position is going to change, but right now that's Rav's position. Ika Benai, my Benai, what is the difference between Abaya and Rav? Abaya holds that the reason why the Uber is Kohen is because it's Yerusha Aval, and Rava holds it's maybe the Uber is not Kohen, but it's Mefriya Merafim Biyadai. It's not a Guzah. Halacha l'maisa, would there be a difference? Everybody still agrees that the first chazak is not good and the second chazak is good. So is there a difference in halacha between these two options? So the sure is ike beinayu sheshamu boy shemeis v'loy meis v'yachar meis. Imagine they heard with certainty that he died, right? So the person, according to Rava, the guy who made the chazaka with full confidence, even though it was a mistake. It turned out the child was alive, but he was under the impression 100% that the child had died. So when he made the original chazaka, with full confidence. That will be a kinyan because we make Kardini holds and over doesn't have kinyan, doesn't have Yerusha. Mashek and Abai says doesn't matter what you were thinking. The fact of the matter is there was a live Uber at the time, so you couldn't have made a chazaka because it was never hefty. That's one option. The Rashbam throws out another option, the opposite way, where in fact there was never an Uber, but they weren't sure. In reality, there was never an Uber. They weren't sure. They only found out later there was no Uber. So there, according to Rava, wouldn't be a Kinyan. According to Baya, would be a Kinyan. Okay, Gavalt. So right now we're at the position where Rava is taking the position that an Uber is not kind of at all. Tashma, Tinuk ben Yoim Echad, a Tinuk who is 1 day old, so he was born, but he's only 1 day. He could be Noichel, he could Yarshin, Umanchel, and he could be Moirish to somebody else. And we make a diak. Ben Yoim Echad in Uberloi. Dafke if he's a Ben, if he's born, but an Uber cannot. So you have a beautiful raya. That an Uber cannot be koine, just like Rava said. So I'm happy you asked that question, because I'm going to give you the answer and you're not going to like the answer. And then I'm going to give you the right answer. Very, very simple. What happens is let's say a father dies and there's 2 children who are born and there's 1 Uber. Okay? Or let's talk about a Ben. We're talking about a Ben. An Uber is not Machal. A Ben is. There's 3 children. One's a very young child. They each Yarshin 1/3, right? And then that baby dies. So now he's Machal to his brothers. So why aren't you supposed to like it? It's because he would get it anyways, right? It would get it anyways, right? So Zok to Gemara, Rab Sheshes said, because of the kasha that we just asked, he'd get it anyways. What does that mean? What it means is Noichel v'nichsei ha'eim lahanchil la'achin min ha'am. You know what it means? It means avada an Uber will be kind. What we mean, an Uber is not kind ben yamechad in Uber loy. You know what it means? What happened is if a baby's a day old and then the baby's mother dies, okay, and then the baby himself dies, who yashus this baby? The achin min ha'am, right? So imagine he shared a father with 2 other brothers, but he is coming from a different mother. His mother died, and I'm sorry, the brother from another mother, that's right. So he yashud his mother, and when he dies, then it will go to his brothers from the father. Now, if he didn't yashin it, it would have went up the line to her family.
His death is his action of being machal.
That's right. Well, that's how everyone's machal when they die, right? So Reb Sheshes anyway had to explain the words of the Brisa that it's referring to Noichel b'nichse em lahanchil la'achin min av. Because otherwise, like Moti and Dovi asked, who they asking from. So therefore, it's referring to the mother. So therefore, really, a Nobajerish. And in fact, an uber would be Yorish's mother too, but not the kever. So therefore, what if the baby dies while the baby is still an uber? Right? So the mother dies, let's say the mother dies first, and then the baby dies while it's still an uber, or vice versa, or whatever it is, the baby dies. If the baby dies, then the brothers of this baby won't charge him, because he cannot be manchel to his Yorshim what he yarshed from his mother after his death.
Who would get the?
It would go to her mother's father's family. There was her mother's father's family. If he's not around, his grandfather's family, and you go through the same succession as we had in Hilchos Yerusha. But Dafka ben Yemechad, Dafka if the child was born, do you say that he will yarsh it, and then when he dies, it'll go to his brothers with whom he shares a father? But if the baby is an uber, if she dies and there's a fetus there that dies too, there's no Yerusha there at all, and it goes back to her family. My time, what is the reason why it doesn't work? Because my inspiration, because he dies first. Means he must have died before his mother. So the svar is, if he dies before his mother, then he's being Yerush Bekever, right? If he died after his mother, it's a regular Yerusha. That's a very good question. You're asking bang on all the questions the Gemara is going to ask. It must be because you're assuming that the baby died before the mother. If the baby's a fetus, it must be that the baby died first. And the ein haben yerishes imay bekever lahanchil laachin minah. When the ben died already, he will not be Yarish's mother bekever. Meaning, while he's alive, he yarshes his mother, but he doesn't yarsh his mother if he's dead at the time that his mother dies. However, that only works if the wealth is going to be transferred to his brothers from his father. But if he had children, then Avada, he would yarsh to give to his children. But Eina ben Yarsh even bekever. So Frank Moti, who said that the baby dies first? Maybe the mother died first. We're talking about the mother dying, right? The memra, the whom inspiration, are you so sure that the baby will die before the mother, if the mother dies? There was a story, in fact, where a mother who was expecting died, and the baby was bouncing around. So you see clearly the baby could survive the mother. Amar Mar Bar Vashi, yes, the baby was bouncing around, but the baby was dead. That was just nerves. What's it called when the animal walks around even after it was shechted? There's a word for it. So that's what it was, but it wasn't really alive. So therefore, the baby must have died before the mother, and therefore you say that Eina ben Yoyresh is Imei Bekever Lahanchel La'achim.
The mother died and the baby didn't live.
Correct, Mati. What about a car accident? Sometimes the mother dies and they save the child. That's also the Gemara's. That's Tosfos discussion. So Zok Tosfos, Mom, you're hitting home run after home run. The Huma is Bereisha behind your timer. What's the reason that? Why is it that if the mother dies with the baby, that the baby dies first? It's a spooky reason. The ID de Zutra Chayuse, since his life is just barely alive, Ailele Tipcha. Is a tipcha or is a tipsa? It's tipsa. Ayla tipsa the malach hamoves umechatchelas l'saman. We once learned that the malach hamoves drops some drop of poison into the person, and that's how the person dies. So it's going to impact, since he's not so strong, the chemo will impact the baby first and kill the baby. Correct the Tosfos Matis Kasha. Hard Amr Beperk Behema Makasha. How is that possible? According to what we're saying. If the person died, if the mother died for natural causes, for sure the baby will have to die first. But if the animal was killed through non-natural causes, such as shchita, there it is possible that the fetus will survive. The Mesa Imai. There was a story where a mother died, and after she died, the baby was delivered. How is that possible? Because she didn't die naturally, she died because someone killed her. Inami, even if it's a woman who died through the Malach HaMavis, here she was in the middle of labor. She was in the middle of pushing already. There already you'll say that the child won't die. The Odein Avlad Meis could the Mashma Pekamatera. So there's two options. Either the Adam, the baby could survive the mother, or if the baby's already in labor or she's pushing, I don't know what point it is. Then, well, it's always the Malach, no? I'm not sure yet. In time, even the Bahariga, Oy Nekar Lotzeis, he Maisa Beresha, since it does happen, where sometimes she does first, Im Kain, Amai Noka Davka Ben Yemechad, could be Noichel Manchel. There's even a Hekatim to where an Ober could be Noichel Manchel, if the Ober survived the mother. The Shloimar, the Ben Yemechad Psikale, we know exactly what that is. Ober like Psikale, the Misli Noichel Manchel, exactly what case it is. It's we want the Bryce won't stick to sure things. So what that's I thought the Malach HaMavis so could be the Malach HaMavis killed the child differently when it's natural causes versus when someone kills him. Like there's some chemical that the Malach drops into the person that kills it. Maybe if someone chops off a guy's head, someone's murdered, maybe the Malach HaMavis is soymech on that and doesn't waste his own venom. Okay, so Zog to Gemara. Right now, we're at the point where we thought we would have a raya that a Uber is not Yerush, but we slugged that up because really an Uber is Yerush, she's just not Yerush bekever lahanchil la'achim inav. Zog to Gemara weiter. Another pshat. Omar Baravashi. Mar Bared Rab Yosef Mishmei Rav Mar Bared Rab Yosef Mishmei Rav Amar Loimar Shemamayit Chelik Bechur. You know what the Brisa means when the Brisa says that an Uber can't be koina. You know what it means? It means Shemamayit Chelik Bechur. Avada an Uber could be koina. So once again, we're going back to the tzad where an Uber could be koina. And that it says that an Uber is not koina, it means so there's first I have to explain what this pshat is, but I also want to point out that based on this pshat, what are we saying? We're saying that really an Uber could be koina, right? And who's talking? Mishmei de Rava. On Omar Aleph, Rava said a teretz that really the Uber is not koina, and the reason why you need to make another chazaka is because your original chazaka wasn't a confident chazaka, right? By the case of the Ger Shemeis, which means Rava there was taking the position that an Uber is not koina. Here, Rava is trying to show us that it's possible that an Uber is koina. So Shpram says it's not a stira. Rav is just trying to show you don't have a right either way. So he's showing you that you could learn things either way. So what does it mean, Shemayit B'chel B'chor? Very, very simple. The halacha is, let's say there's two brothers plus the Uber, right? There's two brothers plus the Uber. So let's say there's 12 fields, and there's two brothers plus the Uber. So if it wasn't an Uber, if the child was alive, so there's three brothers. So if there's three brothers, how do you split the Yerusha? There's one Bechor. So it's three brothers, 12 Chalakim. You divide the 12 Chalakim by 4. Each Chalik is 3. The Bechor will get 2 Chalakim, which will be 6 fields. And the 2 Pshutim will each get 3 fields. Right? But now that we say an Uber, so that's if it's a Ben. What if it's only an Uber? What if when the father died, one of the babies were only an Uber? So then it's not Mamayit Chalik. So therefore, you have 12. You don't look at it like there's the Bechor has 2 brothers, you only look at it like the Bechor has 1 brother, because the Uber is not Mamayit in the Chelik of Bechor. So if there's 12 and there's only 2 brothers, you divide 12 by 3, and there's 3 sets of 4. And then the Bechor gets his Chelik of Bechor, which is 4. So that's in the bank. Now there's 8 remaining, but the 8 remaining have to be split 3 ways. Because the Vlad, I'm sorry? No, he gets, but his Chelik of Bechor is 4. So first he takes his Chelik of Bechor is 4. Now for his Chelik of Pashit, now the Uber does count for the Chelik HaPoshut. So you take the remaining 12 minus 4 is 8. You take the remaining 8 and you divide 8 by 3. 8 divided by 3 is like 2 and 2/3. So everyone gets 2 and 2/3, right? Now, I'm sorry. So the Bukhari ends up with an extra 2/3, but not quite, because what if the Braita says, and the Uber is not koina to be a ben is noichel umanchil, Uber is not noichel umanchil. So look, we have to look at it now. The baby dies. Now the Uber dies, right? So let's look at from both scenarios. If it was a ben or if it was an Uber. So if it was a ben, they're each going to get each of the pshutim are going to get 2 and 2/3, right? Right. So that means he's going to end up with 6 and 2/3, right?
No, if it was a Ben,
So no, if it was a ben, he was going to get 6, and they're each going to get 3, right? Now, what if the Uber dies? Oops, what if the ben dies? I'm sorry, it's a ben now. What if the ben dies? Now that goes 50-50 to the Bechor and to the other brother. So one brother is going to end up with 3 plus 1.5. The Pashut will get 4.5, and the Bechor who got 6 is now going to get 7.5. So it's 7.5 to 4.5, right? But what if it was an Uber? If it was an Uber and then the Uber died, how was it split up? We said that the right off the bat the Bechor gets 4, right? And then he gets another 2 and 2/3. So he gets 6 and 2/3. But now, if the baby dies 6 and 2/3, he's going to get 1 and 1/6 on top of that. So he's going to get 7 and 5/6. You can get 7 and 5/6, and the other way he was going to get 7.5. Right? So that's the difference. It's not as stark a difference once they die, and now we're splitting the chelik of the Uber. It's not going to make such a huge difference, but it makes a difference, right? Zok to Gemara, v'dafka b'yamechad ben yamechad abul Uber loy. My timer. Why is it that an Uber isn't counted when you're discussing the chelik of a chayir? Because it says in the pasuk, "Yisien alish te noshim, achas ahuva v'achas nua v'yoldu loy bon." When you're talking about a bechor, they were noila to him, to the father. That means they had to be noila. V'yoldu loy, v'yoldu loy amar Rachmana. And therefore, since this baby wasn't born, when it comes to bechor, we look at it like he doesn't count. When it comes to regular Yerusha, of course he counts. But when it comes to bechor, he doesn't count. The Omar Mar, Bareja Yosy, Mishmei Derava, Ben Shenoilat, La'achar Mises of it. So this is a different law. Ben Shenoilat La'achar Mises of. A son that was born after the Misa of his father, Einoi Memayit Bechelek Bechor. He will not impact the Chelek of Bechor. My timer, the Yoldolo Amar Rachmana, V'halek. So that is one shot. So based on this shot, Rava is saying you don't have a raya from here that an Uber is Yerush, that an Uber it could be Koina. Really, you don't have a raya from here that an Uber cannot be Koina. Really, an Uber is Koina. But here we're talking about him yarshaning to be Mamayit the Chelek B'chayr, right? Besura Mas Nahachi. This is how they learned from V'yol Doloi. They learned in Surah that a ben shenoil achamish aviv is not Mamayit the Chelek B'chayr. But the Pumadisa they learned something else out of the V'yol Doloi. Mas Nahachi. Amar Ma Barid Rabbi Yosef Meishi Meidarava. B'chor shenoilad la'achamish aviv. We're talking about the Bechor himself. If a Bechor is born after his father dies, my timer, Yakir Amar Rachmana, the father has to be Yakir the Bechor, but Letza, the Yakir he can't. So let me stop you for a second. How is it possible for a Bechor to be born after the father dies? How could someone be born later than that? If the Bechor is only born after the father dies, does he have any siblings? How does he have siblings? He's the oldest, and his father was dead by the time he was born. So how is there another kid?
He could have multiple wives.
Oh, very good. That's one shot. And the other shot is they were twins, and he was born a minute before his brother. So those are the 2 pshatim the Rashbam says. So let's have a look at that. You're machavin right away to Rashi, to the Rashbam. Very good. So let's look at Bechor Hanoil Achamitzes Av. That's like the 4th uber wide line. To go in either Yolda to Umim. That's one option, and he was the firstborn twin. He had many wives. But Noilad Reuben Achar misasai mileya v'Yosef v'Rachel. Two different wives had children, and he was born first. So he is the Bechar. So therefore, he doesn't get, if he only was born after his father died, he does not get a double portion, because it says Yakir, a father could only be Makir if Mamish, you're asking bomba kashas one after the other. We're going to get there in a second. You hear about these kasha? The older look can tell you the same thing. Okay, so we're going to see that in a second. Zog to Gemara, Yakar Machmana, less of the Yakar. And I don't understand. And if he was born a second before, the father's not Yakar anyway. But Rashi Pram says it has to be royal. It has to be royal that the father could be Makir as long as he was born in the father's life. I'm assuming the two lishni are side that a bechor won't get bishnayim if he was born after his father died, and B, a child who was born after the father dies is not memait in the chelik of bechor. We calculate both those structures. So, Mati, why do I need two Yoldaloi and Yakir to really be interchangeable? So let's have a look at Tosfos. Bechor shenoilad achar misas ha'av ein noitel b'chelik b'chayra. My time in Yaakobin. Kashalari. That was exactly your kasha, right? The Pergesh Bechor, Dorish Nami, Gabi Bechor, the Dorish Mune Bechor, Shayota Derech Toifen. What if the Bechor wasn't Paterechem, it came out through a cesarean? Ein Noitel Bechel Bechor. Zoktosh is very simple. The base limud is from Yakir, referring to the Bechor himself. Eloi di Adinan, Bechor, Mikra Achrina. We have two limudim. One, we're saying refers to the Bechor himself, and the other one refers to whether or not a Poshet is b'mayit chelik b'chayr, right? The lesser the Chiddush, the most Poshet way to apply the Pasuk is to talk about the Bechor himself, because the Pasuk is talking about the Bechor himself, not addressing the Poshet. So really, it's a little mud. Only the old law is referring to the Poshet. The old law is talking about the Bechor, right? So why is it addressing halacha of if the Poshet is b'mayit chelik b'chayr? Zaktosis, you first needed to use Bechor to tell you that the Bechor has to be born in his father's lifetime. Now from the older law, I don't need it. I don't need it for that anymore. So now I can apply the old doing to tell you the status of the Pashat as well. To be Shloimer, Eloit the Yedina, that Bechor Mikra Achrina will have a Muki High Kra B'Pashat Al B'Bechor. We would have said the older law is speaking about the Bechor, because Pashas we're talking about a Bechor here. Why would the Torah be addressing what type of pashat is memayit chelik b'chayr and what is not being memayit chelik b'chayr when the pasuk is really talking about a bechor? So therefore, we have one pasuk to address the bechor, that the bechor only gets pishnaim if he was born before his father died. I'm sorry.
What is the other way?
The other way we apply to the pashat, that if a pashat is born after the father dies, he is not counted to be memayit chelik b'chayr. That's a little bit off topic from what the pasuk is talking about. We wouldn't be able to apply it off topic unless we already took care of the on topic. Like it's like Amar Yitzchak, Amar Yochid. Hamizaka lu'uber loikon. If you're mizaka to an uber, you're not koin. Similar to Rav Huna said. Mishnah saying. So Rav Huna said, I don't know pshat of the Mishnah, right? And we blind tzarchin. So Zok Rabbi Yochanan, I have a teretz for our Mishnah. Hoyel v'daita shel adam kroy be'etzel b'noi. You know, the halacha that we say, a mezaka liber lekana, that's if it's to a stranger. But if it's to his own son, there, avada, it will work. Let's have a look at the Rashbam. Someone loves his child. There's such a forceful kinyan pushing it towards the uber, that will work. But stam to be maked to an uber wouldn't work. Zog to Gemara, Amr le Shmuel or Chana Bagdasa. Shmuel told Chana Bagdasa, I need to broadcast the halacha so everyone should know. Hook, go out, bring me 10 people, the Aimer Loch Ba'payu, and tell them, or I'll tell you in front of them, so that the word will get out. Hamazaka Uber, and I'll tell them not to tell anybody. So then for sure the word will get out, right? Hamazaka Uber Kana. Hamazaka Uber Kana. And the Rashbam speaks out, Shmuel only meant Hamazaka Uber Kana if it is a child using the svara that a person wants to give it to his child. Because if he says over here, oh no, he doesn't say it over here. So we'll get there in a second. He wanted to say across the board, but the Gemara turns right around and says, but Shmuel was wrong. Because here the Rashbam says that the Hilchos of Mezaka Luber Loikana, that's a foreigner, stranger. But your own son, we still do paskin like Rabbi Yitzchak, and we say that a Mezaka to his son will be kind. Let me read the Rashbam inside. The Hilchos of Mezaka Luber Loikana, Rabbi Yochanan, Uchagoyin she'enoi benoi. I'll have a Mezaka Luber shebemei ishtoi. That's kana the daita shel adam kroiva eitel benoi. So halacha l'maisa, the Gemara is paskening like this last shita that we had from Rabbi Yitzchak Amar Beichanan, that Mezaka Luber is not koina, but Mezaka to your own child, since Adam Kroiva, person likes his child, Adam Kroiva Eitzel Benoi, there it works. Zog the Gemara weiter. Ahud Amar Ledvisu. Yes, it says if you tell your wife, if it's a boy, I'm going to give him $100, he gets $100. So it's very much koina. Ahud Amar Ledvisu. Someone told his wife, Nechasai. Now, what happened is he's marrying his second wife. Okay, he's marrying his second wife, and he tells the second wife, "Your son is going to be the Bava for them." Right? That's what happened. So, Hahudam Levisu Nechasai Livni the Haveli Minech. You know, I'm giving my Nechasim to the children that I have with you. Also, Berei Kashisha. So, Rav Filchi came along, and he said, "Omer lei Hahu Gaber Matavelah." What am I, chopped liver? What am I going to get? You just gave away my Yerusha. Amalei, so the father said, no. Zil kni kechad mibra. You'll also get an equal chelik. So let's say I end up having with this wife 5 children. We're going to split it into 6 pieces, and you'll get one of those pieces. So calm down the son. I wonder if there were any other sons from the first marriage that got cut out of the deal. So Zok to Gemara, what is the halach? What is the halach? Because what he just did is he said, I'm giving it to you like I'm giving it to those other children. Those other children, will they be kind? No, Hamazakar, this is not even Mizaka Lober. This is Mizaka to a fantasy of somebody who might be born sometime in the future. It's for sure not kind. So the question is, if I tell my son who's alive, who I could be matne something to, you're also going to get a chelak like them. What does it mean? That means you'll get a chelak? Or does it mean you're going to get a chelak like them? In other words, you're not going to get a chelak. So that was the Gemara Shaila. Surely the children that are going to be born from the second marriage aren't kind.
The father said, I'm giving to you, and his wife did. And the wife said, no, I'm asking that you should get a boy. And then he took it back.
We need Chaim.
Take it back.
I hear. I only said it because I was hoping Chaim was here. So the children that will be born from the second marriage, they're for sure not koina. The akati lesnu, they're not there. You can't be marketed to them. They're not even on Uber yet. The question is, hi, this live son, what would be with it? So let's think a second. Eventually, there are going to be more children born, right? So let's say there's another 3 children born, right? So there's now 3 children born. Then what I would do is I'm going to get, if my matana is a good matana to the child who's alive, how much is he going to get? He would have gotten an equal chelik as if the other 3 got to. So let's say there's $100,000 and there's 3 children plus him. So his gift would be $25,000. Maskim? Now there's $75,000 left in the estate. That will be split now 4 ways, because the children born later will be yarshining. They just didn't get this gift. So that's the shaila. So do you say, Islay cholik letalia b'mokim bani? Do you give a chelik to a tleh? Tleh is like a youth. B'mokim bani, even though the other people in the group are not getting because they're not born. Or less cholik letalia b'mokim bani, or he doesn't get a chelik. Reb Avin, Reb Maisha, Rabbi Yirmiyah, the Amri is cholik l'talei b'makom bani. So Rabbi Yirmiyah held that this son who's alive will call him naftulcha, he will get. And Rabbi Vov, Rabbi Chanina, Bar Papi, Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha, the Amri less chaylik l'tayv b'makom bali. So Rabbi Vo holds that Rabbi Tolcha wouldn't get. Amr lei Rabbi Vo Rabbi Yirmiyah. So Rabbi Vo asked Rabbi Yirmiyah, I hold he doesn't get. You hold he does get. Who do we pass on? That works if it's an Uber. But here it's not even an Uber. He tells his wife, the children that we eventually would have, that doesn't work. That for sure you can't be mad. Nobody holds you could be makna to children that aren't even existent yet. You don't even know if they'll ever exist. So Amr le Rabbi Vo Rabbi Yirmiyah, Hilchasa Kavason is Allah like us that the son does not get, or Hilchasa Kavasaichu, or there's Allah like you. Amr le Rabbi Yirmiyah said Pshita the Hilchasa Kavason. Of course, Allah is like us. The kashish no minachu. We're older than you. The lav Hilchasa Kavasaichu, and Allah cannot be like you. Why? The Dardikiyatun, you're younger. So we're older. Of course, the halacha should be like us, that the son gets. You see, they're biased toward all the older children, right? So Amalei, no, it didn't work then either. Amalei, Rabbi Vo told him back, Midi b'kashi shusa told you milsa. The time I told you milsa. Just because you're older, that doesn't mean you're right. You have to be right. You have to have the right svar. You have the right raya. So age doesn't mean anything. But time of mind, what's the real reason? So again, Rabbi Yirmiyah, why do you think we pass like you? Zok Gemara, Rabbi Yirmiyah said, you know what? Zil legabei de Rabbav. Go ask Rabbav the reason. You know why? The Asbrin Ahalei, I already explained Pshat Rabbav, and after I explained it to him, the Kachish Beireshi Beimedrash in the Bismedrash, he chuckled, yes, that he's masking. So I told him Pshat, and he was masking, so I asked him the Pshat. I'm not telling him. So Azol Gabei, so Itaka went to Reb Avin because he wanted to see the reasoning why the child should yarshin. Amalei, kni kechamor. Amalei ilu amalei kni kechamor mikani. So he challenged Reb Avin. How could you say it works? If I say kni kechamor mikani, let's say I tell a person, I want you to be kind of $100, just like I want the chamor to be kind of $100. The chamor is not going to be kind of $100, right? So why in the world would this child be kind of? The itmar kanika chamor loikan. What if you said at vichamor? I want you and the chamor each to get $100. Rav Nachman Omer kana mechza. Rav Nachman holds that half the money will go to the person. So if I say this $1,000 that I have, I want it to go to you and the chamor. The halacha is, although the chamor doesn't get, but you'll get your half of the money. You'll get $500. It's not a kinyan at all because I'm telling you, be kind of like a chamor, and a chamor is not kind. Rav Sheshes Omar. So there's two. If you said kinika chamor, for sure you're not kind. But if you say at vichamor, I want you and the chamor to be kind of $1,000. I didn't specify you get 500, he gets 500. I said you and the chamor should get $1,000. You get 500. You don't get anything at all. And the Rishbam says the kibbon, the shite, the bikini nechad shite shneim, since you put them both together, like nigmer v'daite lahaknas lozeh v'loy zeh klum. The chivin the chamor lekana even ami lekana. Rav Sheshes Amar kana hakoil. Rav Sheshes held that since the chamor doesn't get, you get the full 1,000. Okay, so we'll stop here and we'll be able to be mamshuk tomorrow. To their dogs. Yeah.
There was a lady that did not think actually. What was her name?
Leona Helmsley.
Um,
She owned hotels.